I'm so curious. It's still the fact that you're the youngest person in Congress. I feel like everybody would go to Congress and you're like, I'm gonna change the world. I'm gonna go bully all these guys into my correct positions. I'm gonna get all this work done. It's gonna be awesome. What are like one or two things that you went in thinking like, this is what I'm gonna do? And you're like, oh man, actual lawmaking and legislating is not what I expected it to be.
Do you watch any Twitch streams or any YouTube channels?
Oh no.
Okay, so people are gonna judge me.
Do you think that like AOC like paved the way for people to not be as critical towards young people? Because I haven't seen this guy get anywhere, because he sounds pretty pragmatic even though he's progressive.
Yeah.
No, what?
We're still on.
Oh, I'm sorry, well, there's a disagreement in the audience. Mic him up, bring him over here. Get him a mic. All right, we gotta disagree over here. The question was basically, yeah, so today, obviously, America is historically divided. I guess we always say that, or people always say that. We've been historically divided. But you cross the aisle and you work with people on different subcommittees for people that a lot of people consider unworkwithable. I think that's a word. Or if it's not, it is now. How do you cross the aisle? How do you work with people that are so politically different than you? Yeah, to actually get stuff done in Congress.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the question, and thank you for having me, and super excited about the work that y'all are doing. It's difficult. I'll tell you, like, what really got me into learning how to have these conversations, and really, what got me speaking with people who disagreed with me was actually when I started working at the ACLU. And that work was really the work that got me to have conversations with people who either number one, didn't know me, or number two, just didn't really understand my position. I remember Amendment 4, which was the ballot referendum to give people with previous felonies the right to vote. And we traveled the entire state of Florida speaking about a movement and a ballot initiative versus a candidate. Because up until then, I had only worked for candidates, for Democrats. And so getting to work for an issue, speaking with people, Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, about the issue that I really cared about, got me in a place where I found myself in coalition with groups that I disagreed with on everything, except we came together because we believe that people with previous felonies deserve the right to vote when they come out of being incarcerated. I mean, I believe people should have the right to vote while they're incarcerated too, but that's a different subject. And so being a part of that struggle with folks I had vast disagreements with really was an exercise for me in being able to have conversations, validate the roots of people's concerns, and figure out where that common ground is. I'll give you, for instance, I have a colleague named Corey Mills. I disagree with him on like probably everything, but he's a very fiscally conservative guy. So I came up to him and I said, hey, Corey, you're fiscally conservative. Are you like that on everything?
And he was like, yeah, of course. And I said, well, look, I think we spend way too much money on our DOD budget and our military budget, and there's so much waste and fraud that happens because of these contractors. And I think we should write a bill together to empower the Inspector General to claw back that money and research that money and figure out where that's going. And he said yes. And so we have a bill together on that that is about reining in that money from the DOD. So really it's about having conversations and coming close together. But the caveat I have to add is, number one, it's easier said than done. And number two, I would never ask somebody to sit across the table from somebody who like denies their existence or hates their existence, etc. Like I never encourage a trans person to sit across from Marjorie Taylor Greene. In fact, I don't work with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I probably never will have a bill with her. Right?
Oh, damn.
So there's certain people that I'm just not going to work with on bills. But there's a lot of people in Congress, 435 members, so there's a lot of opportunity.
Can I ask a question? I'm so curious. So I believe it's still the fact that you're the youngest person in Congress, right? That doesn't change. It's not a 22-year-old that's
not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like, because you're younger than me, I feel like everybody would go to Congress and you're like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to go bully all these guys into my correct positions. I'm going to get all this work done. It's going to be awesome. What are like one or two things that you went in thinking like, this is what I'm going to do? And you're like, oh man, actual lawmaking and legislating is not what I expected it to be. Have you had any of those moments? What are like a couple like really big things that a lot of people see? Because a lot of people see a young guy going in and it's like, bro, where's our socialized healthcare? Where's our 15-hour minimum wage? Why haven't you done it yet? I thought you were representing us. Yeah.
So I'll tell you this. That's like what. Like I'm gonna answer in reverse real quick. So what you just brought up, it's more of a thing nationally, right? So like, you know, I'll post a tweet about a bipartisan bill I have. That's a step forward. It's not Medicare for all, which I believe, strengthening Medicare in some sort of way, expanding it in some sort of way, right? And sometimes people on Twitter or something like that will be like, well, what about Medicare for all? You're never real progressive, blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you, I don't really get that a lot from people in my district because I was very intentional in my campaigning. I think part of the reason why 50% of this country doesn't vote and why so many people believe government doesn't work for them, because a lot of times it doesn't, is because politicians have been lying for generations saying, vote for me and this will happen. And it's been a problem on the left and the right. And so when I was running, because I've worked in lobbying and like I've been working in the sphere of Congress in the past, I knew that I had a better understanding, I would say, than maybe other folks who have first time candidates of what it takes to really pass a bill and how difficult it is. So believe it or not, I never really promised any legislation in my race. I was very specific in the way I spoke about things. What I promised was a fight for our values, was a fight for these bills. I promised the promises I made were on how I would legislate and how I would co-govern with people in my community, not on vote for me and we're gonna have Medicare for all tomorrow. And so I think it was really important because I think if we had more people who campaigned in a way that promised a fight and promised solidarity and didn't promise a bill, I think more people would, in the back of their mind, fully understand that members of Congress, we're advocates, we're organizers, and we're legislators. And, we need, there's 435 people in the institution. In order to pass something, we need that plus one, right? Unless it's some other type of bill. And so I think that setting expectations with my people that I represent, that I'm accountable to in my home, was a really good decision that I'm really happy we did, because now people see us as part of the fight. We're in a celebrity culture where people like to prop up politicians as celebrities. And the problem is that there's not one congressperson who's going to change everything for us. It's not one president that's going to change for everything for us. It's a collective, and organizers, volunteers, electeds, people do mutual aid, artists, people in our culture, we all have a role to play. So either way, that didn't answer exactly what you asked, but it kind of does.
Managing expectations.
When I came in, there hasn't been a ton of situations where I've said, wow, this is, I came in thinking it would be easy and it wasn't. I will say the thing that is proving to be the most challenging, I find, is like just being able to operate in a Congress that is just completely in chaos. And for people who don't know, this Congress right now is on track to be the most unproductive Congress in the history of our country, ever.
Yeah.
And so I love this job. I just wish I got to focus on it more, but there's always some sort of crisis or something going on. Meanwhile, I go home and we're dealing with real problems, and we have an existential climate crisis that is here already. And we're, it's tough. It's tough. And that's been the thing that's been the most difficult to deal with, is actually the dysfunction in Congress. So I would say that's the most surprising.
Do you mind if I ask, how do you not become a part of the problem, become a part of the swamp, shall we say, and hold on to those values and those goals you had when you came in as an activist?
Yeah.
Because AOC talked about when she came in that like even the orientation was stacked with lobbyists, there were no union reps there. So how do you maintain the real Maxwell Frost as you go through this career?
I think it's all about the people you surround yourself with. And look, I'll tell you, so when I went to orientation, so everyone put yourself in these shoes, right? I went on a Tuesday. You get summoned to orientation. You got to be there on that upcoming Monday. So you fly in on that Sunday. But then I ended up going to New York to do The View. And I took a day off to go. I'm a musician and I'm a huge concert guy. I went to go see one of my favorite bands, and they shouted me out. And just everything was so crazy for that week. I go to orientation, I'm meeting all these other people that are new to Congress. It's just everything is hitting me. And then I come back home after that week. I felt like I was gone for a long time, and I walked into my living room, and I remember having this weird feeling because I kind of forgot what my living room looked like. And that was the moment where I said, this is how it happens. This is how people get elected, and they go, and then they kind of slowly slip away from who they are. So in that moment, I said, I ability with the people in my district, with my staff, with the way we hire our staff, everything, to help make sure that doesn't happen again to me. Because we're only human, right? And it's not that we want people to be perfect inherently, but we want people to figure out what are the things, what are your faults, and how do you build a team that helps you not fall into that. So what I'm trying to say is it's about the people you really surround yourself with. And so we're always in close collaboration and solidarity with our on the ground organizers and organizations in Orlando, which is a big one. And these are friends and people who have no problem slipping, or they like what I'm doing, or et cetera. And even just being in fellowship with them helps me make sure I'm not slipping, and that I'm always focused on Orlando, even though I might be spending a lot of time in DC. So that would be the biggest piece of advice, or biggest thing that I've done, is like I hired a team that is a mix of people from home and people who have worked on the Hill. And that's been important, because every day I walk into the office and I literally see people who remind me of home because they're from home. You know, one of our legislative assistants was my field director. He ran my program of knocking doors at home, right? And so building a team and building systems of accountability helps keep you grounded, because it's only human when you spend a lot of time in one place to sometimes, you know, things can, you know, the priorities can change. But what you have to do as a legislator is set up systems of accountability so you can hold yourself accountable, and people have a way to hold you accountable and keep you grounded.
I have a very serious question and then kind of a goofy question. I'm going to start with a very serious question. I saw you were a jazz drummer. Have you ever seen the movie Whiplash?
I have seen Whiplash.
Yes. Okay. And then the goofy question. Okay, so I'm curious, as you come into Congress, how do you balance your responsibility as a Democrat member in Congress that has to vote with the party on big legislative issues versus your responsibility as a congressman from Florida representing the interests of Florida? I understand that this Congress is historically unproductive for reasons that we won't get into, like Republicans. But how do you, have you ever had any of those moments where you're trying to think like, man, you know, the party needs me on this, but Florida needs me on that? How do you even sort through like the correct decision-making process there?
Yeah, and I'll say sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's like, you know, the party needs me on this, but maybe I have a values difference on it, or this and that. There's always competing priorities. The biggest one, first and foremost, is my district, and it has to be, right? Like that, those, you know, oftentimes we kind of categorize all politicians as like working for all of us, and we do, and like I am accountable to every taxpayer, but not fully. I'm really only accountable to my district, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's why we have this system. So that way we have people who focus on their people. So I am fully accountable to the people, not just the voters, but the humans and animals and everybody of Florida's 10th congressional district. And that's first and foremost my biggest priority. The second one I always think about is the state of Florida and the South generally, because I'm a progressive in the South. We're dealing with this huge threat of right-wing neo-fascism, which is creating hostile environments for trans people, black people, immigrants. I mean, anyone who's not a wealthy white man. And so like, that's the second thing I think about. And then the third thing I always think about too is broadly the progressive movement across the country, and how do I make sure I'm in line with this movement that I believe in, that I come from, and that ultimately I believe will be the catalyst for making sure everybody has healthcare, that we defeat the climate crisis and gun violence, etc. And so it's hard, like, you know, a lot of times, like, a vote will be called and you only have a day to really digest it, and it could have big consequences or big things to think about. And, you know, me, naturally, I'm like, I want to talk with a bunch of people at home about this, but sometimes you can't because you don't have that much time. And that's why the way you hire is so important, because you want the district and your values represented in the people who are going to be in the room with you when you're making the decision. So keeping the priorities, I think, is important. Having people, I have folks that I can call real quickly, right? I have a quick vote on immigration. I have my staff, but I have stakeholders I can hit up and say, what do you think about this? And it helps me make my decision. But ultimately, the thing I'm thinking about is when people at home read how I voted, even if they disagree with the way I voted, I want them to walk away saying, but I know Maxwell has my back. And like that's the biggest thing for me, is I want everyone in my district, Republicans, Democrats, etc., to believe that I have their back and that I love them. And that's why all my press conferences in Florida start with me saying, you know, I love you, Florida's 10th, and because that's how I want people to feel at home.
Quick question building on that. You seem to navigate the space between being a progressive and dealing with the liberals really well. I don't see a lot of criticism towards you, as some of your progressive colleagues do get attacked quite often, and you seem to take some similar positions. How do you navigate that as a progressive in this more liberal-centric Congress?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I do get dragged every so often on social media, so I won't say I'm completely immune to that, and that can be difficult. But everyone has a different style, and everybody represents a different district, right? I mean, a progressive that's representing a district in California, or like a very progressive state, or et cetera, the way they talk about issues, their style of governing, it just might be a little different than mine. Because the thing about our state is, I have huge hopes and dreams for our state, for our district, for our country, the things that I believe in. Like, I believe that basic standard of living should be a lot higher than it is now, and I think that housing is a human right, healthcare is a human right, and that we have a right to live without being shot in our communities. And I believe we need big, bold, transformational change to make that happen. It's like, we need government to get real big to protect us and help make sure everyone has what they need, so that way we don't have to think about government anymore, right? The goal here is people shouldn't even have to think about politics. But I also square that with the fact that I'm in a state that is completely run by the right-wing neo-fascist movement, and it's dangerous. It is dangerous. And so I take a step back and I see that our greatest tool against this are a few things. And on the electoral, or on the ground side, mutual aid, which the whole point of mutual aid is saying, I accept we're in a broken system, and I will do everything I can in my community to protect and source the people around me. And that's incredibly important work. There's culture and the arts, which help people in a different way, and also just help ensure that we can connect, bridge the gap between cool and consciousness, which I think is important. And then we also have electoral work, which sometimes gets a bad rap, but if we're honest with ourselves, that's what decides the material conditions of our people and how we're governing, and that's important. And so in Florida, the Democratic coalition is very broad, but it has to be, because it's our only chance at being able to knock off people like Ron DeSantis, which is a big priority for me. And sometimes we have fights within our Democratic coalition, but at the end of the day, we come together to elect people who we believe will be a part of that fight. And so it's hard sometimes, and we have fights within the family, but at the end of the day, the thing I always think about is, we have a governor who's passing laws to literally criminalize trans kids, queer kids. Now it's illegal in the state of Florida to drive someone who's undocumented, which, think about how big of a deal that is. We just have this right-wing fascism taking over our state, and I want to make sure that I'm a part of the solution while not letting go of my values. And sometimes that might confuse people, because I'll work really hard to get, if it's a moderate Democrat versus a Republican, I'm going to do everything I can to get that moderate Democrat elected. And that person will know we have disagreements on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we have an almost existential fight in this state and in many states across the South, and it pushes us to have the broadest coalition possible.
When you're kind of, as somebody who's so young going into Congress with hopefully fresh ideas compared to the 98% or whatever, Gen Xers and baby boomers that are there, when you go to hire staff, when you're picking people that you trust to pick up the phone and call, how do you balance out this is a person that's going to give me a fresh new perspective with this is a person who's an established, because the new perspective guy might not have the experience, and the more experienced guy might not have your perspective. How are you making those balancing decisions when you're picking a team?
Well, I'll tell you this, the first thing I always think about is values. So everyone who works on my team has to share values with me. That's first and foremost. It's it's the red line, because at the end of the day, us as a team, we're going to make decisions that sometimes will be out of step with the party, in step with the party, out of step with certain folks, and I have to make sure that at the end of the day, my team, even if certain people might disagree with the decision I make, we share values, which is progressive values and a progressive vision for this country. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think about is you have to be self-critical and think about, what do I need help with as a manager, as an organizer, as a legislator? And, for me, I come from organizing. I love big ideas that involve the most people. I love the arts. I'm someone who's always thinking about all these things I want to do. And my best friend growing up, her name is Naya. We used to run this music festival together in Orlando where we donate all the money to mutual aid. And I'd be the guy that's like, I want to book this artist, do this and that. And Naya would stand and be like, cool, what about this, and this? And some people listening to this might say, wait, Naya sounds like kind of a buzzkill, but she's not, because she would be a buzzkill if she brought these things up because she wanted to tear down my idea. But Naya brought these things up because she wanted my idea to happen. You get what I'm saying? And so, I think about hiring people who will be like my friend Naya, who are going to help bring up objections and help center things and help make it happen. Not because they want to tear it down, but because they're there for the vision of what we're trying to do. Office is very diverse in terms of, for instance, I have a chief of staff who's been on the Hill for 15, 16 years. And we also share values. And before he came on the Hill, he worked in labor, right? And so that kind of profile is something that I really wanted, because I'm a first-time legislator. And I know there's things I don't know, and I want to be effective. And I know that as the first member of my generation in the institution, if I come out with no real legislative wins, it reflects poorly on me. And I'm not saying I'm the representative of Gen Z. I do not believe that at all. But it could make it harder for people after me. And so I also keep that in mind. And so I hired on a chief and certain people in our office who've been there for a while, because they get the institution, and getting the institution is important. And then we have a group of people who come from the movement spaces that are hired in my office too, at high levels as well. So I think the diversity is important. I don't believe in an office that's all new people or all more people who've been in the institution. If you have a good mix and they all share your values, no matter what, I think that has to be a red line. Then I think you're set for success. And we've had some really big wins in our office in just a year. And I think it's because of the team we built.
Man, you're such an optimistic guy. What are you hopeful for the future? Do you see the legislation that you want coming to fruition? I mean, it's just so many people are down in the dumps, especially young people. And how do you stay so optimistic?
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be down in the dumps. Things going on around the world, here at home. And we're not in a good situation in this country. But I will say, that we are going in a good direction. And, I've been involved in this since I was 15, actively. When I was 15, I got involved in working at gun violence because I didn't want to get shot in school. I went to a vigil after the Sandy Hook shooting, and my life changed forever. 3 years later, a bigoted domestic terrorist walked in a Pulse nightclub in my community and murdered 49 people. And then 3 months after that, I survived an instance of gun violence in downtown Orlando, just out partying for Halloween. And so I've been a part of a movement that's so riddled with trauma, and the gun violence prevention movement's, all about ending death, that I've had a lot of moments where I've thought about just leaving and just focusing on my music or and not doing it anymore. But what's kept me into it is we always get these glimmers of hope that turn into something bigger. And I feel optimistic for the future of this country. One of the biggest reasons is, think about it this way. Gen Z is the most politically active generation in the history of our country. Gen Z and millennials made up a third of the electorate last year. Gen Z and millennials are generally a very progressive generation. And half of Gen Z can't even vote yet. So I think we're getting to a place where we're able to build some real political power. I know it might not seem like it now, but we are getting to a place where I think one day we'll wake up and we'll say, wow, we've been working so hard, and now we have the votes to make sure everybody in this country has health care. And we'll go in and we'll vote on it, and this will be in the future, and there'll be a president that signs it, and everybody in the world will be like, wow, this feels like it happened overnight. And for those of us who've been doing the work, we'll look at each other and we'll crack a smile because we know it was anything but overnight. Sure. And so I think about those days a lot. And we're coming, we're getting there, and we've hit some of those days already on some big wins, and we have a lot more to do. Don't get me wrong, but I mean the alternative is just not doing anything, and I just think that seals in our fate, for humanity, especially when we talk about the climate crisis.
All right, cool. Well, hey, listen, we really appreciate you joining us. I think we're about to cut. Is there any final? Do you want to? I don't know if you shout out.
Wait, I have to ask you before we go. Do you watch any Twitch streams or any YouTube channels?
Oh no.
Okay, so people are gonna judge me, but I like not as much anymore. Most of the YouTube channels I watch now are like election ones, or like, you know, I watch. Who do I watch? I watch a lot of like progressive YouTuber people. I don't like you know, Kyle Kalinske and Breaking Point, stuff like that. But I will say, growing up on YouTube, and like Let's Talk About Elections, which is a super nerdy like analyst pollster YouTube series that helps keep me up to date on races around the country.
Yeah.
But I do watch a lot. I used to watch a lot of prank videos growing up. Like that was my thing on YouTube, was like the prank videos. And now I look back and I'm like, damn, half of these are like super problematic. So, but either way.
That's cool.
All right.
Not necessarily.
Thank you for answering that.
But I appreciate y'all having me on. And yeah, I appreciate y'all having me on, and good luck with everything going on in the canvas and everything. And for people who feel down, like it's difficult right now, but canvassing is something I like really believe in for many reasons, and it's not just to win an election. Like think about all the like the shit going on, and the fact that, you know, you go out to someone's door who might think no one cares about them in the political world, and then it's someone there who's like caring about them and talking about a better world, and that can have such a big impact. And so I'm a huge fan of canvassing and being out in the community. So appreciate you, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Mike's hot.
Well, what'd you think about our new friend?
God, I'm so glad he didn't say son. You were setting him up for it. I know you were.
No, I wasn't. I was just curious who he watches. I genuinely was curious.
Do you think, I wonder if, and it could just be because I'm not as plugged in maybe to Twitter politics. That's not true, actually. What do you think that like AOC like paved the way for people to not be as critical towards young people? Because I haven't seen this guy get anywhere, because he sounds pretty pragmatic, even though he's progressive.
Yeah.
No, what?
No, I don't think that's accurate. I think AOC didn't like pave the way.
Mics are hot.
Oh,
You're good.
yeah, we're still on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, there's a disagreement in the audience.
I think AOC definitely opened the door and took a lot of the criticism and a lot of the heat for so guys like Maxwell Frost can have an easier
We should get this guy, mic him up, bring him over here. Get him a mic. Here, come sit on the couch for a second. Yeah.
Let's give him a mic.
No, you don't want to? Oh, okay.
All
Alright, great job, y'all. That was awesome.
Oh, where we are, we're still on. We're live and chatting.
But no, I do think that like people like AOC opened the door and made it easier for him, and he's going to make it easier for the next generation too.
Sure.
That's why I wanted to ask him, how do you navigate between being a progressive among all those liberals, because he doesn't get that criticism that you said, and he does say the same things that a lot of these people say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy for sure. He's super positive.
I can't imagine being like 25 and you're in Congress.
Right. Yeah.
He sounds like way more level-headed though. I'm being harsh, I guess, comparing like the justice systems. He sounds pretty level-headed, but this guy's been doing activism. I think he was like the national director for March for Peace or whatever, for the gun
March
stuff.
for Our Lives.
Or March for Our Lives, yeah. And then the all the gun stuff, or not the gun stuff. It was, what did he do with the ACLU?
I don't remember.
It was a lot of work for the ACLU too. He mentioned working for felons' right to vote and everything. So maybe just the experience and everything kind of like made him a little bit more level-headed coming into Congress. So
he just seems that he wants to actually solve problems, so he knows he's got to work with some people he disagrees with, and a lot of people on the internet don't do that. They're like, you just scream.
All right, we got to disagree over here. AOC did not pave the way.
No, I mean, I think, hi everyone, be nice to me. No, it's a harsh crowd. Have you seen the stuff in the chat?
No, why?
Okay, you should just
They were just probably being nice to me the whole time.
Rough.
Okay.
I don't think she paved the way. I think she's still dealing with it on a daily basis. So I think the energy, the naysayers or whatever, the critiquers, focus more on the women elected officials than they do the men. I also think that Florida right now is not a place that a lot of the media or a lot of folks are looking at. I think Florida and Ohio have been both discounted as potential flippable states, so the attention goes elsewhere. So I just don't think he's just in the middle of it all. I mean, I know he's a historic leader, and I know that his election is historic and what he represents, but I don't think AOC like the attention and the negativity that AOC receives, I still think it's ongoing. And same as Congressman Omar, they receive a lot of hate mail, they receive a lot of anger, a lot of frustration when things go wrong or things go, it's always directed at them. And it's just the thing that,
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I feel like the reason, though, I feel like a big part of the reason why is because I feel like when the Justice Dems came in, keep in mind this org was originally pushed by it was Cenk and Kalinske,
yeah.
right? I feel like people legitimately thought, millennials legitimately thought that these 4 lawmakers were about to change all of Congress.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, and I think that those people fed into it. AOC, Rashid Tlaib, the other two, Ilhan Omar, and
Ayanna Pressley.
Nice.
The Squad.
I always forget the fourth one. Yeah, the fourth one. The Squad, yeah. I feel like in a way, they kind of fed into that because they were very activist on Twitter, very much calling out other politicians, very much willing to fight with Pelosi and everybody else. And then as time has gone on and they've kind of realized, like, okay, we need to do some effective lawmaking, I think that's where a lot of the hate comes in, because it was the difference between the expectation and what actually happened at the end of the day, where they were like, okay, well, we actually can't change the world with just the 4 of us. That's my feeling, I guess.
I believe that they still think that they can change the world, and I still think that they receive a lot of the vitriol, and they still take on a lot of the vitriol. I think just like anything in politics, I think we've grown accustomed to it, so we've moved on to the next thing. I think people don't eyeball what they receive on the day in and day out the same way they did when they first came in or when they first showed up. When AOC defeated a lazy ass congressman who took his district for granted, and she emerged as this national leader. There, you have to understand, there's like, folks get jealous. They look at that and it's like, why not me? When we saw Presley do that too, they're like, why not me? And so many people run for office and lose, and then these two come out sort of out of the woodwork, and they do what they do. And so I think there's a lot more than the simplistic, like, oh well, they got into Congress and they were just throwing a lot of attention on Twitter and they were saying big things. That's why they were getting critiqued. I think there's more nuance to that they were women of color who emerged to power, and folks all across the board were uncomfortable with that. And I think that's always ongoing in this space, regardless of how much more diversity you see in Congress. And the changes that we've seen, and I think there's been great strides. I think when jealousy, maybe undertones of subtext of sexism and racism and all those things that play a role, they did give people permission to be assholes online and to be able to talk to folks and troll and be behind the scenes and be able to talk and communicate to folks where you can say the worst of the worst. And you can say these to human beings who, even if you disagree with them or agree with them, you would hope that their objective, they're trying to create change, that they're coming into this space, into civil society, to civically engage with the idea of changing something for the better. And people, I think, just have a hard time with that sometimes. So.
Well, I think they're missing the hard work that they're doing behind the scenes.
Right.
You're a member of a legislative body, so you have to work with your colleagues, you have to compromise, and that's
I also hard disagree. I disagree with I feel like I understand that there are always going to be people that are sexist and racist, but I feel like when you look at the blowback they were getting from progressives, because I think that's where a lot of the surprising blowback was coming from. I don't think it was because progressives were.
Okay, but can you be clear on progressives? Because I think there's always an oversimplification of like progressives. We put them in this sort of monolith. Are you talking about like progressives, online progressives? Are you talking about
when I think of online progressives, it feels like AOC especially had like a mandate to rule on behalf of like progressive America. But it feels like as soon as she moderated a bit, stopped attacking other Dems as much, started openly working with Pelosi more, it felt like the tides turned, and there were a couple of statements made where people were like, oh my God,
accepting
she sold
endorsements.
out. Yeah, unbelievable. We thought she was going to be different, and now she's a sellout like every other person in Congress. I thought a lot of that progressive blowback came from the lack of the difference between the expectation and the reality of being a lawmaker. And I don't think a lot of that was driven by sexism or racism on the progressive side.
Pelosi still gets, as one of the badass women in charge, still gets a lot of heat and a lot of stuff thrown at her that are sexist. Obviously we could talk about the break-in that happened and the things that have happened in her life, or all that stuff. Like, I think that, again, I'm going to go back to my original argument that I think we've just grown accustomed to it. And when you grow accustomed to things happening to other people, and if it's not happening yourself, you just go, oh yeah, that's happening. It's been happening. We can't really, and you move on to the next thing. And I think that's a big challenge in our politics and our civil societies. We move on to these hot button issues, but there are still things that are happening that we've moved on from. And I think if Pelosi was here with us today, she'd be like, I receive sexist shit all the time. Things are thrown at me all the time. For me, being a woman in power, probably be considered to be the most powerful woman in politics, and so I think they're all still taking that kind of heat. I just don't think it's front and center.
That's another, real quick, that was another double standard thing, was when some congressman, I think, said that if you see Kavanaugh in a restaurant, you should bother him. Do you remember this?
I don't.
Am I making this up? Did I just make that up?
I don't recall what to do. What was
I thought that there was a big deal where Kavanaugh was getting harassed in restaurants or something.
Oh, push up on him.
There was like some online chatter to like reverse.
Yeah, and somebody, I thought there was a popular person.
I think it was Maxine Waters. Are you
Maybe?
talking about? Like
Yeah.
push up on people.
It might have been, yeah. Okay, thank you, Josiah. Thank you for making me not feel crazy. Yeah, but then when you'd mentioned, what wasn't it? It was Pelosi's house that got broken into.
Yeah, her
and
husband.
immediately, rather than like, oh my God, this is horrible, we shouldn't do this. It was, I think that was her husband's secret gay lover.
Right.
The crazy Republican spin machine went through. Oh my God. Oh, sorry. I hate conservatives. Ahrelevant, what's up?
Yeah, what's up, buddy?
Hey.
I mean, I just came in, I was watching the stream, I was just hanging out, and, I got tasked with coming down. But to some of your earlier thing, because I wanted to jump in a little bit on some of it about the expectations that she had. Wasn't there a big deal about the way that AOC voted on the I think it was like the Iron Dome thing, where she voted like present?
Maybe.
Yeah, that it was, I think,
thing.
and there was a lot of people who were really upset about it was like a thing to increase the funding for the Iron Dome. She voted present instead of like nay, and there was a lot of people who were freaking out about that, and it was to the effect of like, we put you in here because you were supposed to do this specific thing. You were supposed to be on this specific track. Because I'm of a similar opinion that
It happened to Bernie Sanders too.
Yeah, it 100% did. Like, you're supposed to do this specific, very clear thing, and then when you play ball, because you have to do it. You literally have to do it.
Yeah, and I think there's I worked for Bernie Sanders in 2016 as his deputy state director in New Hampshire, and then I worked for him again later in that cycle as his state director. And there's definitely these candidates who run for office go through these purity tests. And I think Senator Sanders, you could argue, hasn't really achieved anything. There's no legislation that you can really look to, or there's a very few that you can go, he actually got through the Senate, which then passed into law into sweeping reform. And partly because if you looked at his track record in 2016, when I worked for him, he wouldn't sit down with folks, he wouldn't really broker, he wouldn't really go into the room and try to broker deals, delegates, he just ignored everything. He's just like, I'm the outside candidate, I'm going to do the thing. And I think kudos to AOC and some of these other folks who, maybe saw the writing on the wall, and they're like, there's going to have to be times. And we saw that, with the Congressman too, talking about times that you need to compromise, but still be able to speak to your progressive values. So I'm not saying that she hasn't maybe taken a page out of Pelosi's book and figured out how at times to compromise or to give a little, to get a little, get some back. But I still, going back to why, you asked me to come up here, and I hope everybody online is being very nice to me right now.
They are.
I doubt that.
But is that, I know, right? I'm like, be nice.
I'm not kidding.
My glasses are great. Is that AOC still takes a lot of shit, and I think it's still all directed at her, and I bet you $100, if he was a woman and if Florida mattered, a lot would come at him.
I have to disagree a little bit because I think it takes away from his accomplishments as an activist for 10 years getting up to this point. And I do think that he handles himself in a difficult
but I wasn't
state.
questioning about how he handles himself. I think AOC and all, carries herself pretty well too. I think they all do a really good job. I'm not looking at it from critiquing them about how they carry themselves. I think they make mistakes and they make choices, and some of them are bad. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to look at them and be like, yeah, they're like the worst humans in the world representing our country.
No, I think if I misunderstood your argument, let me know. But you were saying they get a lot more hate because they're women.
I think, because the argument, and I think this is what we're blurring, is that they ascended to power, and how there's 500,000 elected seats in this country, right? Like, people are running for office all the time. And there are a lot of people who lose elections, and I think there's a bitterness that comes to that. And these two, I'm talking about Presley and AOC, they moved up really, really quickly from being unknown to being powerful men in power who took their positions for granted, and then they were amplified online because people rallied behind them. And then you see that, and at first people are excited, and then they attack it. And I'm saying to you is that stuff still goes on for them. That's what I am arguing.
I just don't want to take away from Maxwell Frost's achievements.
Oh, it's amazing, yeah. No,
that's all.
I didn't mean to do that. I did
enough.
not mean to do that online.
Destiny agrees with you 100%, by the way.
He does
Fucked
not.
up. You fucked up hard on that one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Lesson
how so?
learned, I guess.
Why didn't you step in then?
Yeah.
You think you fucked up?
I'm listening to him.
Oh yeah.
What other reflections do you guys have?
He's so nodding. What other reflections? If I could have asked him some more, I would have asked about how does he navigate that Florida delegation? Because I mean, Florida is an interesting state. It's third largest state in the union. Republicans, Democrats. It's an interesting mix. He can't just give up. He can't just scream. He has to actually try to fight.
I think I would have asked him more questions about Whiplash.
Whiplash?
Yeah, why did you?
He's a jazz drummer.
Why did you just bypass that? You're like, yo, Whiplash. You watch it?
Well, I just had to make sure that he's seen it, number one.
Yeah.
Then the second issue would be, is he really from the South?
Well, I love that he brought up the South.
Does Orlando count as the South? Are we there now?
Florida's the South.
It really is it though?
Yes.
Jacksonville and Gainesville are the South.
Okay, but
Is Orlando and Miami?
Florida
Doesn't
as
the
a whole.
Bible Belt run through Florida?
We
Isn't,
should
like
be fighting
the
for
top
the
part, so that's the South.
That's like, it's more like Georgia, Alabama than Florida up there.
Okay, so we can just say
Florida?
it has some of the South then.
But the point is
way.
that the South is that we won Georgia for the first time since '92 with Biden. We should invest
Despite
more.
hardcore leftist online streamers
that argument,
constantly attacking Ossoff and Warnock, we didn't mention when. Go ahead.
Can we talk about this investment argument thing? Because I think sometimes, like, for your viewers, when you're talking about party investments, how challenging it is to get money invested in infrastructure to turn people out. And to provide clarity for the audience about if you're saying investment through nonprofits, through philanthropy,
No, I mean-
through the party infrastructure.
I just mean energy and attention.
But what's the investment mean? Because I think I've heard that a lot today. Like, people say investment. We need to put more money. We need to put more money behind youth engagement. Like, what does that look like? Because if you say, okay, the Democratic Party needs to put more money, get more money behind and put it into, southern states or maybe potential flippable states or just all states, like, where does that money come from?
I mean, it looks like what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
Canvassing in states that people have written off and saying, no, we're not giving up. And pouring in resources, whether it's money, whether it's from organizations, whether it's from getting behind candidates, attention. That's what I mean when I say invest.
The labor behind it, like how Destiny needs to get some labor to change his pants.
Oh,
What are you talking about?
You're just wearing like blue sweats.
If you can show up with that haircut, I can show up with these sweatpants.
You think my
okay?
haircut? You want to bet that people will think my haircut is better than those pants?
That is if you showed up in a homeless TikTok video, people would go, yeah, I get it.
You think? No shot.
I'm just kidding. Anyway,
How are you saying that with those pants? Literally walk outside.
Listen,
people will
he's
think
got
that.
color. He's taking a chance. He's got more color. It's better than just black.
Well, doesn't he wear blue and black? Like, isn't that his thing?
No, he's usually all black like a goth.
True.
This is him
Well, he had
expressing
blue hair.
himself, dude.
He had blue hair, so
Yeah.
he was getting away with it for a little too long.
Were you in a transition?
Well, I don't know.
Wait,
this guy over here that looked like he just
Well, no,
robbed a
'cause we're
Goodwill
talking about
was sitting here arguing over my sweatpants.
Yeah, 'cause I was
so-
like,
You see my suspenders, bro?
I was talking about investment.
Accessorizing.
I was
No.
talking about investment.
Yeah, investment.
And then, do you
What is
invest
it-
in your pants to help turn out votes? Like, I
Yeah,
don't
no,
get it.
for sure.
Oh no, I think okay. The question is, what does it look like to invest in party infrastructure? One of the big criticisms of the Obama administration was there was no investment in leadership afterwards.
Yeah.
If you look at Trump now, there's no investment in Republican leadership afterwards. The DNC is like a huge thing. Pelosi raises money, but yeah, I guess as somebody, you guys have obviously an intimate connection now with working with fundraising and funding these efforts. What does that money machine look like at the end of the day? How do people get hooked up to that? How do people, funnel that into effective places?
I think that for folks who watch and hear about investment and that we need to put more investment, the hardest thing to do is to go to a donor who knows less than you and you ask them for money to invest. Like, donors are, a lot of the donors who put money behind the Democratic Party, and many of them are successful in various fields. They've accomplished a lot, so they have an idea about what success looks like and how that presentation should be, right? And so if you go to a donor and you're like, yo, I want you to put $10 million into North Carolina, and they're like, okay, we want to, that sounds great. North Carolina could potentially be flippable. And you're like, but aren't Republicans in the state house, they run the state house and state senate, so how do you think this thing is going to be flippable? And you're like, well, the votes are there. Well, where are the votes? Well, black voters could spike. Okay, cool, but it hasn't in the last X amount of years, so how are you going to do that? And so they have all these questions, and then if you can't show immediate proof that it's going to result into something, they're going to look at that easy thing. And one would argue that Georgia, you mentioned Georgia a second ago, that it was flipped. Like, Georgia and North Carolina are actually quite similar to each other in the sense of the kind of votes that they have. One could argue that North Carolina has more Latino voters, but overall, like the black population, white population, all that stuff, there's a lot of similarities. And everybody's like, Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. But can we just all agree that, like, okay, if you put more money into Georgia, but like Warnock won by what? Less than a point. If he ran against an average Republican, one could probably say that that Senate seat would have been flipped. And now people might have look at Georgia and say Georgia's not flippable again. And 2020 was an aberration because Trump was so bad. Or
I was going to say 2020 might have been an aberration too, because I'm pretty sure Trump steadfastly refused to support either of the candidates after Raffensperger didn't bend to his will, and his not campaigning, plus the gun legislation. I've heard from Georgians that they were pissed off about the bump stock thing too. So maybe
but
Georgia was like a
with Georgia, and so donors go, Georgia is winnable now because it was flipped in 2020, and so they go more money into Georgia because Georgia is the it, and the media, which plays a role in this too. The media obsesses about Georgia because these newsrooms, and we don't talk about this enough, newsrooms are stretched. So editors and writers can only do so much. They can't be everywhere at all times. And they're like, all right, we're going to focus on Georgia because Georgia in 2022 went Warnock or whatever. And that's the state. So like a state like North Carolina, you can go, it's totally overlooked. It's never written about, but all the electoral math there, the demographics, the youth vote, all of it adds up that state can win, but no reporter is willing to write that. And so then the donors go, oh wait, I'm reading stuff from my, fancy high level, magazines or whatever, and they're going Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. So they dump more money into Georgia, and then it doesn't get proportionally allocated. And that's a huge problem. And there's a lot of complexity about balancing these things.
I think for the first set of runoff elections, wasn't it over $1 billion, I think, was dumped into that state in advertising?
Insane.
It was an ungodly amount.
Yeah,
I think it was the most
insane.
expensive Senate races of all time.
Definitely was expensive, yeah. But, I mean, it worked. We got a 6-year term for Raphael Warnock, so.
Against he won.
You said
this is like a Doug Jones situation. He beat someone that should have been destroyed by 10 points. Flip it. Kemp won by 8 points against
You're talking about Herschel Walker, the werewolf vampire guy. But that's the thing. That is the Republican Party now. So I don't think
it is. I disagree with that too. I think the Republican Party, the areas that they win in, is the Brian Kemps of the world. People don't talk about this enough, but Brian Kemp invested
Brian Kemp
invested like over $100 million into African American businesses during the time that he beat Stacey the first time and the second time he ran. And then people are like, well, why are black men more and more breaking for Republicans? It's because you're putting money in their pockets and you're saying, hey, we're going to make you money. And at the end of the day, you talked about this, I think, earlier. It's like, what are the issues that folks really care about? It's like making money, putting money in people's pocket. And I think that's critical. And I think Republicans, the ones that are not getting caught up in this Trump, crap, they are putting money in people's pockets the way they know how, which is like what Kemp is doing. Oh, sorry, guys. I got distracted. Don't criticize me for veering off.
Well, I know we're still trying to cycle people in. I don't know. Wait.
Is that my cue? Do I leave?
I think we're trying to get other people in, yeah.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, we've got 2 new, awesome, exciting guests coming up.
Yeah,
cool.
I'll swamp.
So can I leave now?
How about you and I will go and
okay, good. Bye, everyone.
Where are you going?
Fuck you.
Jesus.
We're joined by recent full-time YouTube content producer, Pondering Politics.
/ruminate
/rum
1 and 8
and 8. And then to the left, we're joined by LonerBox.
Can you come closer?
Come here.
They can just see your knee. LonerBox's knee.
Into the box.
Yeah.
Man, guys, what's up? What an exciting day we've got here today. The weather's beautiful outside. It's been nice and warm, historically warm weather for Ohio. Clear skies, not sunny, a little overcast, but...
We don't celebrate climate change around here like you do,
well,
okay?
we do when only one car accident happens. So did we ever find out why that car accident happened?
No.
Can we get some information on that?
Yeah, so somebody was trying to vote Republican, and he just, no, I think he said he was like overwhelmed with city infrastructure, and his GPS misled him, and one thing led to another. But he still showed up, which is what
The
matters.
streets are really confusing.
Are they?
Yeah.
Right
Like,
isn't
for
right
some-
in a city.
It's really confusing pulling out of some of the places that we have been. It's been kind of a nightmare in some of the areas.
He started laughing at me. I don't know why.
What do you-
I feel like he's talking in coded language, making fun of me right now.
No, I'm not talking
Yeah,
about
absolutely
I would
is.
never do that to you, I promise.
Okay.
I think
good.
right and left still work like no matter where you are, but I understand if like you're used to like rural living.
Really? You
and
don't believe in the Overton window?
not when it comes to directions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow, good job, guys.
Yeah.
What about you, LonerBox? What do you think?
What do you think about American
Yeah, what do you think
infrastructure?
about-
Yeah.
I think Ahrelevant looks great right now.
Thank you.
That's a
Well,
fact.
dressed.
That's not a matter of opinion.
Especially the hair.
Nice.
Yeah, he said I shot that Goodwill.
Don't let Frodo
That's what I look like.
Baggins put you
Some
down, okay?
Goodwill person.
Wow, good job, guys. Man, what an exciting day.
I don't know, what
I
do you
mean,
want to talk about?
unironically, when we were, doing the lunch and stuff like that, it was really nice to see a lot of the people. I genuinely was not expecting like anybody to, recognize me, like be like, hey, what's up? But there was a crazy amount of people that did, and we're just like, hey, man, I came out, I watch your stuff, like, and
Wasn't that when you were on stage oiling your chest? Wasn't
Yeah,
that when
yeah,
I was about to say we were all lined up
when
at
we
that
were
point?
we were doing that. We took some very good photos. I'm actually very happy with our like drip
match,
combination on
yeah.
that.
I don't know. It's just really when you think about just as millennials. I remember growing up like in the 90s and mid 2000s. Like being political was like the least cool thing you could possibly be.
Oh yeah, without
When I was like 16, there was like one political guy in my year, and he was like horrible. He was like a Thatcherite. No one liked him. And then 2008 comes, people are starting to talk about like left-leaning stuff, and then like Jon Stewart gets popular and people like that, and then like,
And he's coming
compared
back too. Perfect
yeah,
timing.
and compared to now, when it's just there's such a really rapid change that I think when you look back to where we were just not that long ago, it's like a really like positive thing to see, especially since a lot of like young people are kind of going progressive, and that didn't have to be the case, like because Reagan won the youth vote, didn't he? Thatcher.
I don't know about Thatcher, but Reagan did. I'm sure.
Yeah, Thatcher won the youth vote as well, and I guess for some reason that's not happening to these ones. So
Well, polls are currently saying. I've heard polls say that Donald Trump is making some headway with the youth. Do we believe that?
What does that mean, making some headway?
That he is closing the distance. But so, like, youth overwhelmingly voted for President Biden in 2020, and Republicans are saying that according to certain polls, that gap is starting to diminish.
Anything besides Rasmussen, or?
No, it's probably like Quinnipiac or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
like Rasmussen. So you don't buy it?
I don't know. I feel like I've heard for a long time the idea that like Gen Z is going ultra conservative, but I don't know if that's ever. There've been like that. There was that one psych thing from, was it South Korea, where they were looking at the gap between boys and girls and like how conservative some of their beliefs were going. Why do I feel like you guys are gaslighting the fuck out of me? I know we all read the same Twitter shit. Never mind. Fuck
Probably
you.
not all of
I
it.
mean, I feel like I've seen
We all
a
read.
couple of things.
Yeah, you read that?
Yeah, I read it.
Thank you.
Dylan's
Thank
just
you.
humoring you. But to your point, do you feel like we've helped make politics cooler? Is that what you're getting at?
Wait, how old are you again?
I'm 32.
32. Okay, just making sure. Okay.
No, I don't know. I think they did it to us.
I think the blue sweatpants did it.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
But
What do
yeah.
you got there? What book?
Montana's Indians.
Okay.
What is
Cool.
that?
Yesterday and today.
Gotcha. Montana's Indians. None of you guys have canvas yet. We're doing that tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
8 o'clock start.
Cool. Were you guys all there for your training session?
Yeah.
Good job. Did you all
Led
get
by
trained
Sa-
by this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Float race.
Good job. Very enthusiastic. We appreciated it.
Okay, so I didn't get to see this, but I'm curious. This was like the highlight for me. I'm looking forward to watching it. Your interview with Maxwell Frost. Okay, so I got to ask you about that.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because I'm pretty sure he's the only member of Gen Z who is a member of Congress.
Wait, he's in Congress now?
Maxwell Frost? Yes.
I thought he was just running for Congress.
I'm confused. Am I being memed? Are you?
He's in Congress.
Yeah. Wait, are you messing with me?
Maybe.
Okay, I don't even know what the irony is at this point. So, what was it like talking to the youngest member of Congress?
It was okay.
Was it okay?
Yeah.
You don't like the energy that he brings? I'm a fan.
I feel like,
yeah.
you know what, this is my strange, I can be honest. I like his answers are interesting, but I feel like they're very political. So like, for instance, it's exciting to talk to somebody like that because they're very young, they're in Congress, but I'm actually so curious, like, how do you balance out being a federal lawmaker and being from a state when there comes time, when like Pelosi's like, listen, motherfucker, you need to vote on this shit. I don't care what Florida wants, because and you can't break with the whole party on something. Like, I'm so curious. It would be interesting to push on very specific decisions. Like, how do you at the end of the day weigh these? But like, that's like such a particular thing, and I don't think you would ever want to answer that publicly as a politician. Be like, well, listen, I always side with my state, obviously, But I am really curious, especially because he did seem really smart, and he did seem like he had a surprising affluentness, or he was surprisingly affluent in surrounding himself with good people and like taking advice from people to figure out how to navigate Congress and everything. But yeah, I am really curious how he weighs specifically those
like the dual loyalties, if they're ever like in conflict.
Something I would have wanted to ask, but obviously probably wouldn't answer, is like, coming from the squad, you were kind of like the first young progressives to really break into Congress, and maybe him watching from their successes and failures and learning what to do and what not to do from them. Because I always feel like the people who hit the ground first are the ones who like teach the newer ones a lot of the things that.
Yeah, we kind of covered that. You probably just weren't paying attention at all because you were too busy messing around in the background.
Yeah. Wait, what did he say? Because he clearly didn't say like, oh yeah, I watched AOC do like 3 fuck-ups and I'm never copying that one. Yeah.
No, I'm happy with it. I think his answer was mainly though that like, because he'd had the background in activism, he was able to integrate a little bit more easily with Congress. But
wait, you mean you didn't actually ask him? You just pretended to right now?
No, he kind of like covered it. If you can actually extrapolate to like other parts of the conversation.
So you read between the lines, really.
Basically,
you just inferred,
yeah.
See, what I like about Maxwell Frost, which I hope you'll eventually appreciate, is he brings a youthful energy to this next generation. So Jared Moskowitz, Maxwell Frost, Dan Goldman, like this freshman class of Democratic Congress people, they are like ferocious. If you see them in committee hearings, like they're taking the fight to Republicans, like left, right, and center. So, for example, one of my favorite moments of Maxwell Frost was during a House Oversight Committee hearing. This is Destiny Stream, so we can curse. He made a witness read a quote referring to Donald Trump. So it was during the Twitter files. And if I say Twitter files 3 times, Connor's going to burst through the door like Kool-Aid Man. But Donald Trump requested a tweet when he was president be taken off Twitter. And it was by a celebrity, Chrissy Teigen. And so Maxwell Frost said, can you read what the tweet said? And she said, well, it's really foul language. No, go ahead. And, well, excuse me, the tweet referred to President Trump as a pussy-ass bitch. And so that is officially now in the congressional record, thanks to Maxwell Frost.
My understanding is, I believe that is there's the only evidence of a tweet that was specifically requested to be taken down that was literally just like political language. I don't think there's evidence of anything else like that ever being requested. Was there?
I don't know what
I know there was some
specifics.
personal stuff about like Hunter Biden, like his pictures, like personal pictures, but I don't think there was any other evidence besides, and that was a request that came from Donald Trump, or at least from his staff. And it was just, I want this taken down because she's making fun of me.
Yes.
Which is wild.
Right. Now, I don't know about other specific examples, but it was like even the Twitter files authors and the people who were witnesses in that congressional hearing did say that there were many requests. It's like a bipartisan thing. But the thing about Maxwell Frost, which is great, is that he didn't let it slide. He constantly gives it back. So I feel like compared to even the previous generation, like AOC, right, they're kind of in the same ballpark in age. This next class of Democratic Congress people, they're feisty, they're ferocious, like they're brawling with Republicans in Congress. And I think it's really good. Watch these House Oversight Committee hearings. It's like, if you like drama, if you like reality TV show drama and you want to see some sort of intersection with like C-SPAN, watch like a House Oversight Committee hearing now, because you have Marjorie Taylor Greene holding up lewd images of Hunter Biden, and then you have Jared Moskowitz blowing up an even bigger picture of Donald Trump and who was the billionaire with the Epstein, side by side, and so they're trading, dueling poster boards. I just love that energy.
So you're saying the youths are bringing the memes to Congress, right? Because MTG kind of started, but then she does it the way that like a Facebook boomer tries to like relate to the youth. But
I really appreciated Anthony Weiner's presentations. Not the ones to the underage children. Please, Jesus, keep your mind out of the gutter. when he brought the book down at the gift shop, and he was like, how a bill becomes it was the how a bill becomes a law, and he read it to Congress because they were so bad. You never saw this?
No, I
Oh
didn't.
fuck, it was so funny.
That,
Yeah. How the House and the Mouse passed the whatever. Yeah,
That's
he brought like the
hilarious.
little book and he read it. Yeah, how a bill. Yeah, I thought it was funny.
That is funny.
You guys are gaslighting me so hard right now.
No, I just don't remember.
yeah,
I don't remember everything.
Do you remember when Biden got elected president?
I do, thank
Okay,
God.
yeah.
No,
remember
I
when
don't
Trump was
know.
president?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, well, because you were probably like
Unfortunately.
12.
Why do you
Anything
act
else?
like I'm like 6 years younger than like?
We don't need to talk about that. That's fine. That's cool. You're
not
6
like
years younger than me, 8 years younger
16.
than him.
Wait, how old are you?
39.
Oh, okay.
Now he's gaslighting
Yeah.
you. Don't fall
Yeah,
for it.
that's very obvious. You know,
So have you gotten too much of a taste for American politics now that you're here on the ground,
Nah.
not covering it from afar?
I mean, it's always going to be more interesting than what happens at home.
I think he's just
Like,
trying to get
why?
as far away as he can from traveling Israeli that destroyed him
Oh, that
in his
horrible,
YouTube
yeah.
video. Oh my god.
Have you thought
I mean-
about that, Steve, and the fact that he lives in the UK, they don't have a codified constitution, and they have a monarch, and it seems like their shit is much more stable than ours. We have no monarch, and we have the world's oldest written codified constitution. It seems
Well,
like our
you get
democracy
careful.
is-
When you say their stuff is more stable, that's because I think English people, Scottish people in general, are okay being uncomfortable and realizing that they're fucked. It's like they have like a higher tolerance for just like a fucked sense of
No, it's
So
because
a lot
we're a
different, I
democracy
think.
with Democrats, and you guys are kind of.
Remember when you guys were like clamoring about like, oh, we're gonna leave the UK for like 2 days
What,
because you were
Scotland?
so ass mad over the Brexit vote?
Well, we had a vote and then didn't leave. That's
You're
just
basically British. How does that make you
We
feel?
accepted the results. Yeah, it's fine. I don't,
Yeah, good.
I mean,
Okay.
depends on the context.
It doesn't.
You know?
I think it's impressive. I think it's something like worthwhile, like looking at, like how is it that they're able to pull this off? And it seems like we have all, like at least institutional advantages, and we're struggling with it.
I mean, we've got our devolved powers in Scotland. We've gone way far left of the UK with like welfare policies and things like that. So
Really, name 4.
name 4
Welfare policies.
free social spending stuff. So like we have free bus travel for people who are under 21, free dental care for people who are under 26. We're the first country in the world, I think, to do free menstrual products for women.
like
And
across the board, like all of it's free.
just like no, it's just that you can access it for free if you want. There is a 4th one, but you're just putting a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
so
Okay,
the
it's been a
reason
while.
for this tension
There's, like,
right
the
here is
defense
because
Scottish politics, you know?
LonerBox kicked Steven's ass at chess off camera, and that's
Barely.
the,
He's
that's
just
the
in a bad
tension here.
mood right now.
Yeah,
Played a
Not in
chess
a bad
game?
mood ever. No.
Why do you lie to my face? What did I do? Why do you lie to me specifically?
Well, I figured you put up with Darius for so long. I should be able to get away with at least like a year of treating you
Oh,
horribly.
can I talk
before
about
you-
Darius? Is that what you want to do? You
Me and
want-
Mr. and Mrs. Darius now? I'm just kidding. What else do we have going on today?
Yeah, that's crazy that you know.
Tomorrow we've got more canvassing in the morning. That'll be fun. We've got community night tonight. Does any of that get streamed? No? Okay.
Oh,
We've got a helicopter coming? Oh my god. Are we going to
we got
stream
5
that?
helicopters.
we're gonna-
Five?
Tell them to wrap up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought that was the helicopter. I thought that was a helicopter symbol.
I think Steve's having fun.
Do you want to say that closer to the microphones, Lauren?
All right, well, hey,
That was
listen.
much fun.
Do you want to shout yourself out?
Yeah, you can find me at Pondering Politics, youtube.com/@Pondering Politics. Josiah. Back to you guys.
And where do we find
That's
you?
crazy.
Find
you
me
did
at
that.
youtube.com, LonerBox, or Twitter, or Twitch, all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're not on Darius IRL stream, where can we find you, Ahrelevant?
Nowhere. You can find me absolutely nowhere. Apparently,
Nowhere?
dead last is where you
Nowhere?
can find me. Yeah, no.
my God.
I'm not gonna show myself.
We'll put the link in the description.
We will put the link. It'll be twitch.tv/Ahrelevant, kick.com/Ahrelevant. YouTube, are you on YouTube?
Yeah.
Ahrelevant. Check them out there. And I'm youtube.com/Destiny. Thanks for joining us, guys. Are we done for today, or?
We
All right.
stopped arbitrary detention of asylum seekers for kill yourself.
Nice! There we go! Cut the feed!
Are we actually done cutting the feed?